Yo, what is up, guys? It is Dimon360 back here with another video. And today we're going to be looking at my top 10 favorite stories from Star Wars Legends. I'm going to be doing one on the canon stories as well. But I just wanted to look back on the great stories, the really, really good Star Wars stories, the true Star Wars stories. That is Star Wars Legends, and just explain where I'm coming from. I am huge supporter of Legends over canon, and I'm very much against Disney canon. I prefer the old EU, and these are just my 10 favorite stories from the EU. Like, these are the best out of the best stories. If you're gonna catch me reading or playing a Star Wars game or reading a Star Wars comic or book, these are the 10 you're going to find me with. So without further ado, these are my top 10 favorite Star Wars stories of Legends. At number 10, we have Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. Honestly, the game itself is very, very fun. You get to be a Jedi and you get to train and be a Jedi for the first time, and it's really, really cool. The lightsaber combat is amazing in this video game, and I just really like the character of Jaden Korr. Jaden Korr was freaking awesome. I liked Kyle Katarn in this story, and I loved how they explored Marka Ragnos a lot. I thought that was really cool. I liked how Tavion Aximus was from Jedi Outcast, and she's grown from her mistakes. But honestly, the only characters I actually cared about was Kyle Katarn, Jaden Korr, and Marka Ragnos. Everyone else kind of took a back seat, and Tavion just wasn't that threatening in my opinion. She wasn't this scary threat, so the story was okay. The characters were either amazing or just meh. So it's only number 10 because of the amazing lightsaber combat. They had some great characters, and they explored other characters that I was fascinated in. But it's not my, I wouldn't, over the top, scream at you to play this game. Because there's many more stories I would recommend before this one. So that's number 10, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. At number 9, I have the Thrawn Trilogy from Star Wars Legends. I have not finished the Thrawn Trilogy in canon yet, but it's nowhere near as good as the Legends one. I love how in this one, there's still a lot of struggle. Even though the Empire was defeated over Endor, there's still struggle. Luke is struggling to build his Jedi Order. The Empire is still, fighting. Han and Leia have 2 kids that are who Thrawn is trying to kidnap throughout the series. I like that struggle. I also really liked Luke training Leia as a Jedi in this series. I've had some people disagree with me, saying they didn't like Leia being a Jedi in The Rise of Skywalker. I actually liked it, and because I read this series before I went to see Rise of Skywalker, I really enjoyed seeing Leia as a Jedi, but I also liked the struggle. I liked Luke, he didn't know how to train an apprentice. He had never done it before, and with Leia, it's he just didn't know what he was doing. He just didn't know. Mara Jade is she's Mara Jade. She's amazing. Goes from that Imperial assassin to that bounty hunter to, a Jedi savior. She saves Luke in the end. Thrawn is just, he's Thrawn. He's amazing. And then there was Jaruis Sabaoth, who's that mad clone guy. I was more scared of his mental health than I was of him as a character. Instead, I was thinking just knock him on the head with a brick and get him some prescribed medications. But I was never, actually scared of him. Well, until he cloned Luke Skywalker and did that whole cloning thing. That was just freaky. But the majority of the series, there were parts that didn't keep me interested. It, for the most part, kept me interested. The Mara Jade and Luke stuff, most of the Thrawn stuff, Luke training Leia, but everything else just didn't keep me interested until, like, Sabayoth brought in the clone and all, like, this crazy battle stuff. But, like, most of the series kept me in it, but there were parts of the series that kind of pushed me back a little bit. So that's the Thrawn trilogy. At number 8, I have Swtor, or Star Wars The Old Republic. I know a lot of people don't really like this game, but I actually enjoy it. I like Satele Shan, I like Darth Malgus, I like a lot of the characters and the stories. I like a lot of the side stories with Malgus, the False Emperor, and the Eternal Empire. I like all that. I do actually like many of the main character stories, like the Sith Inquisitor, Sith Warrior, and Jedi Knight storylines. I would definitely recommend. I'd recommend the Imperial Agent too, but I feel like after you play the stories once, you don't really need to go back. It's like, do it once and you're done. Though it is kind of cool to be either a Jedi or a Sith and just play in that universe. Like, I like that. Like, you're in, like, it makes you feel like you are in Star Wars. You have a choice and stuff. And, like, you're your own character. You're not someone else. You're your own character. But I feel like you play the storyline and you're done. Like, that's really all there is. And there's just not much to do after you finish the storyline other than start another one. And then, again, there's nothing really to do. So, there are some really interesting stories. There are some meh storylines. But overall, it's at least worth checking out, if not only once. At number 7, I have Tales of the Jedi. Now, this one I only started reading recently, and I love it. I love how, like, old it is. It's like, these were made in, like, the 1900s, like, before The Phantom Menace. And they feel old, yet they feel so incredible. I love the characters of Exar Kun, Ulic Qel-Droma, Nomi Sunrider, Naga Sadow, Friedan Nad, Vodo Siaskavos. I love all those characters. They're so fascinating. They're so interesting. For all those who think Darth Maul started the double-bladed lightsaber, no, he popularized it. It was Exar Kun who made the saber staff. Or he was the first one to use a saber staff in any Star Wars continuity. So don't give Darth Maul the credit, give Exar Kun the credit. And let's be honest, we all know that Exar Kun would destroy Darth Maul in a fight. Sorry to all you Darth Maul fans, but that's the fact. So, but all the characters were interesting. Like, you understood where they were all coming from. Like, Ulic Qel-Droma's probably has one of the best stories in the whole thing. It's like, he's a Jedi who gets conflicted with the dark side. He joins in with the wrong club. Then he joins in with Exar Kun. And he's just kind of becoming, like, the side, like, tool, the side apprentice. And then that ends up turning against him. And he kills his own brother. And then he tries to make it right. Exar Kun, he initially only follows to the dark side for power and to save his own life, because Friedan Nad is bringing a mountain down on him, or like a temple, but then power goes to his head, and he goes to the dark side. Nomi Sunrider, she lost her husband, and she's just trying to protect her daughter, ends up becoming a Jedi Grandmaster. Like, the stories are just there. They're powerful. They're so ancient and old, but they're supposed to feel ancient and old, because these are, like, thousands of years before the movies, and they feel thousands of years before the movies, and I love it. At number 6, we have New Jedi Order / Uzong Vong War. This could be intertwined with the number 5 spot, since they are kind of the same thing, but this one really only suffers from being a tad bit too long. Like, a little bit too long. But other than that, this is a phenomenal series. The Uzong Vong were such an original and creative idea that Disney feels stupid for making another Empire in the First Order. Because this is just so out of the box, off the walls, that it's amazing. These creatures that don't use technology, they use living things. Like, their own weapons are living things, and they're immune to the Force. Like, they're primitive. They have no technology. They only have living weapons. They sound dumb. They invade the galaxy, and it takes pretty much the entire galaxy to fight them off. And they still fight back with, like, a lot. A lot of the characters were awesome in this series. Jason Solo, Jaina Solofel, Mara Jade is awesome as ever. Luke Skywalker is awesome as ever. Kip Duron is as awesome as ever. Corran Horn, Kyle Katarn. They're all just amazing characters. I love them all. I love getting to see, like, that it's not all, like, happy. Like, there is still struggle, even though the Jedi Order is, like, it's getting large and powerful again. It's like, but it's like, even they can't, like, fight all these guys off. Well, unless you're Grandmaster Luke Skywalker. But everyone else is, like, struggling, and they're still lost. Like, Jason and Jaina's younger brother Anakin dies in the fighting, and both of them have, like, regret, and it has consequences in the future. Like, the Uzong Vong War leads to other stories, like Legacy and Legacy of the Force, and many, many other stories that are all really, really good, and it all started with Uzong Vong War, and I love that. Just the creativity, the imagination, I don't know. The characters, the story, the action just kept me engaged. It was a wee bit too long, but at the same time, there were some books that I just could not put down because they were so action-packed, they were so adventurous, they were so creative. Just, you have to read the Uzong Vong War or New Jedi Order. You just have to. You have to. This is an order. You have to read this series. It is so awesome. At number 5, we have Legacy of the Force, which is right after Uzong Vong War. So you still got the same characters in Jason Solo, Jaina Solo. But we also get old characters, like Boba Fett comes back with his wife, his daughter, his granddaughter. And then there's Ben Skywalker, who's Luke and Mara Jade's son, who's pretty cool. Where I criticized Uzong Vong War for being a wee bit too long, this one's a little too short. It's 9 books, and there was still so much they could have done. Like, they could have easily done a 10th and 11th book, and they would not have run out of ideas. Like, there was so much they built up. Also, you really need to just stick with one author. Just stick with Karen Traviss or Troy Denning. Aaron Alston just had this whole crappy thing going on. So some of his books like Betrayal and Revelation were not as good. But books like Sacrifice, Inferno, Fury, and Invincible are really, really good. But others are just kind of meh. This, honestly, was what the sequel trilogy should have been, but it wasn't. Kylo Ren is a complete ripoff of Darth Caedus, and he nowhere near lives up to the reputation and imaginativeness of Darth Caedus. That whole Luke Skywalker versus Kylo Ren on Crate is pathetic compared to the fight they have in Inferno. The relationship between Jaina Solofel and Darth Caedus is pretty painful. Their final duel is gruesome. Like, Caedus falls on the syringe table. He has one arm cut off. He's like has syringes in his back. He's like burning. It's like that fight got gruesome. Fury was pretty awesome. I love how Caedus, he almost did like a Palpatine move, and he like turned the Confederacy of Free Alliances, or New Republic, against the Jedi. So it's the Jedi against the Republic, but the Jedi don't want to fight the Republic. They just want to fight Caedus. So that was a really interesting setup. Kaitis' whole fall to the dark side was really well handled. I know a lot of people don't like the series because it killed off Mara Jade. I think they killed her off right. Like, and her death got avenged brutally. I mean, oh my god. Kaitis, he got what he deserved. Lumaya got what she deserved. If you consider getting decapitated by Luke Skywalker worth it, she got that. Ben Skywalker had a really interesting arc in this. Jaina Solo had a really interesting arc in this. Boba Fett actually had a really interesting arc with, like, his whole family, and then he and Han Solo had to team up, and this was where, like, Leia was a Jedi in the series, and this is where, like, she got to shine. Like, she had, like, this person trying to kill her. There was just so much going on, and it was so, and there's all these side stories, and then the main story, and they're all so interesting that I really wish there were just more books, because I would have been so interested in fleshing them out. But yeah, Legacy of the Force is a have to read. It's just so good. You gotta read this. You're missing out if you haven't. Number 4, we've got the Legacy comics. Now, I know I've been going between books and comics for a while, but that's like the heart of Star Wars Legends, is the books and comics. This takes place like 100 years after Return of the Jedi and Legacy of the Force. So, Luke Skywalker's long gone. Jaina Solo Fell is long gone. This series is just straight up amazing. We're no longer following Luke Skywalker. We're following Cade Skywalker, and he was an interesting character, shall we say. He was a Jedi Padawan who lost the order to the Sith, and then he went as a bounty hunter. So throughout the series, he was like this drug addict, and he was mean. Like, yeah, like, oh my. And we kind of saw, like, his redemption arc, so that was pretty cool throughout the series. And he was, like, but I always liked it. He was very similar to Quinlan Voss, and he's, like, he's able to, like, use the dark side and the light side, because he's, like, kind of teetering on both sides of the Force, but he also has, like, that criminal bounty hunter personality, so. And then Darth Krayt, he is such an interesting villain. Like, he goes back to the, Clone Wars comic books. He was attacked by Uzong Vong. He was actually implanted with Uzong Vong body parts, like arms and eyes. And he should be like this invincible, unstoppable force, but he isn't, because he has the Uzong Vong things. So it's like he should be invincible, like Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker. But unlike Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker, Krayt has a good reason to have problems struggling against Cade Skywalker and his Jedi forces, unlike Palpatine, who just got hit by his own Force lightning. Or I would even argue that, I'm just going to make the argument, I think Darth Krayt at the end of the series could kill Revenge of the Sith Palpatine. I'm making the claim right there. Go scream at me in the comments, but I think. And then Darth Krayt, he wills himself back to life after dying. And he's invincible, but then, like, Cade comes in does his full redemption arc and kills Krayt. And Cade also has Dark Transfer, which is Force healing, but not a Mary Sue plot armor tool, and is actually, like, a pretty sweet power that Krayt learns, and then he's, like, uses it to kill people, so that was pretty awesome. There were also, like, the one Sith, so we have, like, a Sith Empire and all these interesting characters, like Nihil and Warlock, and we got Wolf Sazin and Shadow Vale. You just gotta check out the series. You're missing out if you haven't read it, because it's just so good. Just Legacy. There's not much to say about it. It's Legacy. At number 3, we have the Darth Bane trilogy. This trilogy is arguably the best book trilogy in Star Wars Legends. Now, there is the New Jedi Order Uzong Vong War, but that's like a whole series. Legacy of the Force is a whole series. Even Legacy is a whole series. But in terms of just a 3-book trilogy, I think the Darth Bane trilogy is easily the best trilogy. You get a lot of new looks on the Sith with the Brotherhood of Darkness. Darth Bane's philosophy is actually really ingenious and really creative. Darth Bane was an amazing character. Darth Zana was an amazing character. The Jedi were interesting, and I liked how easily fooled they were by Bane and Zana. A lot of the characters in Path of Destruction were cool. Kasim was cool. Lord Hoth was cool. Valentine Farfalla was cool. But they were all really good. I love just Bane's quest to rebuild the Sith. He puts the Sith before himself, and that's really rare to find in a Sith Lord, but it's so interesting at the same time. Personally, if I were to recommend them from least to greatest, I think Path of Destruction is the best. In my opinion, this whole list is my opinion. Dynasty of Evil is second best, and then Rule of Two is third worst. Not because it's bad, but it's the only book that I found could get boring from time to time, though that fight scene at the end with the 5 Jedi is, OMG, that was really well written. That was a really good fight scene. I would have paid to see that in live action. It was really cool. But Darth Bane is, again, he's the most powerful man alive, yet he still has these struggles. He still needs help from other people. There's this medical person throughout the series who's non-force sensitive. He should just be one you toss to the side. But no, Bane needs him from time to time. And, he has to, strike these deals with him. And it's really interesting. And then his actions with that man lead to consequences with the medic's daughter later on in the series. So, honestly, of any Star Wars book I would want you to read these ones. You will not find a lot of Star Wars stories so in-depth or interesting as this in the new canon. So just read them, and you will not be disappointed. I can assure you that. And number 2, we have the original Clone Wars Dark Horse comics. I like Star Wars The Clone Wars as a TV show, but these comics are so much better. They are so much better. 10 trillion times better. These are kind of the earlier stages of the Clone Wars, but they do go up to Revenge of the Sith. They are just awesome. You get Anakin and Obi-Wan's story throughout the series, and you kind of see Anakin's turn from Anakin to Vader. You see him get darker and darker throughout the series, and you see the events that make him this dark, and it makes it a lot more, shall we say, believable. We see Obi-Wan's rise from a knight to a master. There are stories with Yoda having to deal with some of his friends joining the Separatists. Mace Windu has to unveil a schism in the Jedi Order. There are some really interesting stories. Asajj Ventress was at her best in this series. Some will argue with me on that, but Ventress in the Clone Wars is just a disposable lackey to serve Dooku, and later just to bring in Savage Opress to bring Darth Maul in. But in this, she's an actual assassin. She's creepy, she's deadly. She was interesting, per se. They gave a lot of cool characters some spotlight, Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, Shakti, even Agen Kolar, who is that one Jedi in Revenge of the Sith who Palpatine just stabbed slowly and nobody did a thing about it. So, even he got some time. Quinlan Vos, for all you Clone Wars fans, the Quinlan Vos in that TV show can lick my behind, because the Quinlan Vos in the comics was amazing. He was so interesting. He was so awesome. But then they brought in some new characters like Sora Bulk, Crook, and there were just so many interesting Jedi and characters that just kept me fascinated. I love the Quinlan Vos stories. I love him going undercover as a agent of Count Dooku and fighting all the Dark Jedi, but like he's falling to the dark side as he goes, and then he has to make that decision in the end, and he finally chooses the light over the dark at the last moment. He fights Sora Bulk and he kills them, and he stands as a Jedi again. Like, that was an awesome arc. Dooku was actually like a threat. Like, he wasn't just some old politician. Like, one of the Quinlan Vos comics, he just goes out on some traitorous separatists, and he just goes all out, and it was like impressive. General Grievous was actually intimidating. Again, Clone Wars fans, that version of General Grievous is like, I can push him to the side and he'll break his jaw. He's so stupid, but the Grievous in the comics was cool, not the Grievous from the show. But again, my only problem is that Ahsoka Tano wasn't in the series, because that's the one thing I like from the TV show over the comics is Ahsoka Tano. So, but yeah, that's the Clone Wars Dark Horse comics. They're amazing. They're well written. They're well illustrated. There are some amazing stories. I personally recommend the Quinlan Vos stories the most, because, you know, he's an interesting character. He's not like Anakin and Obi-Wan again, but it's like he's a new, interesting character. He's a fresh, interesting character with an interesting story with all these new characters. Like, you would like that series. All of you. And number 1, we have Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords. Oh, these games, they're absolutely amazing. Some people might argue that Knights of the Old Republic 2 shouldn't be at number 1, but I love them both so equally. I first learned about Knights of the Old Republic 1 from my cousin, and he was like, this is a Star Wars story, you might be interested, you might like it. So I'm like, alright, I'll try it. I was initially bored, but then, like, I got into the game, and I got into it. Like, it got exciting. The quest to find the Star Forge, the Sith Empire, and then the massive plot reveal that you were Darth Revan the whole time was just, I saw it coming, but at the same time, it blew me away. All the characters were amazing. Bastila was amazing. Johanny was amazing. Jolie Bindo was amazing. Darth Malak was amazing. HK-47 is easily the best Star Wars droid in all of Star Wars. He's just the best droid in all of Star Wars. There's no doubt about that. He's awesome. He's HK-47. Carthonasses, he's Carthonasses. He's not that good. But everyone else was really awesome. You get to go to all these familiar planets, but you also get to go to new planets like Manon and Dantooine and Terrace, that are all like really interesting, but you also get to go to like Kashyyyk and Tatooine, so that's pretty cool. For me, the Ebon Hawk is just as iconic as the Millennium Falcon, in my opinion, because like I grew up in the later years of my childhood. I grew up on like playing on the Ebon Hawk, talking with the crew and all my friends, like flying around and doing all those adventures. Like, it's a Star Wars story, even though it's not like Swtor where you're not the main character, you still feel like you're in control of the story. The story can go in your direction, and it's really interesting. That it has so much replay value. It's a beautifully written game. It's just, you gotta at least play it once, and you'll fall in love with it instantly. It is a little outdated, but who cares? Everything on this list is outdated. Go play this game. As for the second game, okay, I will admit, in terms of story, I felt like the story was a little bit more rushed than Knights of the Old Republic, but there were some things that made it really interesting. I liked the character of Visas Mar, who's like Darth Nihilus' rogue apprentice. I liked all the Sith Triumvirate members. Nihilus was just like creepy, but he was awesome. Like, I mean, like, you always just felt whenever Visasmar or Kreia would talk about him, like, this guy is, like, you gotta watch out for him. Too bad his boss battle wasn't more exciting. Darth Sion was interesting, how he just used his rage to stay alive. And Kreia, oh my god, Kreia is amazing. Like, Kreia or Darth Kreia, just everything she says just has a meaning. Everything she says is a puzzle, and you just want to solve it because it's so fascinating yet so mysterious, and she's just such an intriguing character. She's one of my favorite Star Wars characters, probably of all time, just based on, like, how interesting she is. Like, her story is actually a lot more tragic than you would think for some old lady who's blind. And then, like, there are, again, really awesome characters, like Atton Rand, Visasmar, Kreia, like, she goes out on those Jedi Council members when you learn that she is Darth Kreia, and then she, like, force drains the 3 Council Masters. That was pretty awesome. That scene was pretty awesome. Again, that was a pretty crazy plot reveal, but again, I kind of saw it coming. I just didn't know it was going to happen then. Malachor 5 was so amazing. The super weapon, again, the actions from Revan and Malak caused a lot of the actions in this game. Mitra Surik was with them. She fired the weapon, and she kind of has to make up for her mistakes. Malachor 5 looked awesome, by the way. That planet just looked awesome. But these 2 games are just, especially Knights of the Old Republic 1, but Knights of the Old Republic 2 is pretty awesome, too. Both these games are just so amazing. The story, the characters, the setting, the action, the adventure, the story, the tragedy, just all of it is so well done. It's so well done. There's so much replay value. There's so much interest. There's so much action. Just, if you're not going to read or play any of the other Star Wars material, you at least got to do one of these games. For honorable mentions, I have Knights of the Old Republic, the comic series, which takes place before KOTOR and after Tales of the Jedi. Interesting characters, interesting story. Got a little boring from time to time, but was overall a pretty solid story. But it's nowhere near the same level as the games, and sometimes it felt a little cheesy and sometimes it felt a little boring, but overall it was pretty solid. There's Fate of the Jedi, which this is actually a really interesting story about after Legacy of the Force, that the Jedi are seen as traitors and they're outcasted, and then Abeloth, who, if you remember the Clone Wars TV show with the Gods of Mortis, the father, son, and the daughter, well, Abeloth is the mother, and they have to fight the mother. Luke and his son Ben have to team up with some Sith, and then Luke ends up meeting Darth Krayt in the Netherworld of the Force, which is pretty awesome, because I love Darth Krayt, and I love Luke Skywalker, so that was pretty awesome. But again, just a really interesting series. Not as good as the other 2 NJO series, but it's still really good and really worth your time. And then Crosscurrent and Riptide. These are some stories on Jaden Core during the NJO period. Again, if you do grow to like Jaden Core after Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, you're going to love him after this series. Or if you just want to know him and not want to play the game, and you just want to read about him, again, these 2 stories, you will love Jaden Core after you read these stories. He's an awesome character, really interesting, you'll really like him. And that about wraps it up, ladies and gentlemen. So, I will have a top 10 canon stories up as soon as I can. And yes, the Versus series is going to keep going. I've noticed it's not getting a lot of views, and the other videos are. Well, the reason I started a YouTube channel was for the Versus series. So, you're in it for the Versus series, stick around. If you're not, you're not. But that's the series I'm going to put my time and effort on, so you're not going to see more videos like this, or as many. You'll still see them, but not nearly as many. But, again, I'm putting my time and effort into the Versus series, because I like the Versus series. I like the Council Force cast. I like other Versus series creators. They're really good. They're really good. They're really interesting series. But again, go watch the Council Force cast. Go watch like Evanova 95, Gensarai 1, Antoine Bandele, or like even Rico Chico Maliko or AI Central. They have really good Versus series, and then you might kind of see where I'm coming from, because I'm not going to be doing like Luke Skywalker versus Galen Merrick. That's just pathetic. But yeah, I'm continuing the Versus series. Next time you see me, it will be a Versus video, and probably the time after that will be a Versus video. So canon story coming, and then Versus series for an unknown period of time before another video. So see you guys then. Peace out.